Hi there, everybody. My name is Laura, and welcome to the Equestrian Skill Builders Riding Position Fix-It Show, where we discuss riding position topics and share ideas and exercises to help you or your riders. If you'd like to improve your riding and training, win more ribbons at your next horse show, or generally like other horsey related stuff, then stay tuned because the exercises we're going to share with you today might very well change your riding forever in a good way. If it's your first time here, thank you so much for joining us today. And if it's not your first time here, thank you so much for joining us again today. Now, if you're watching from YouTube, remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new videos coming out. And I'd like to introduce today, co-hosting with me is Patricia Jellerson. Hi, Patricia. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And where are you coming in from today?
Oklahoma, the wilds of Oklahoma.
When I think Oklahoma, I think of Western and raining and cattle. Is there a lot of Western stuff going on there?
Oh, yes. Yes. They just got done with the big AQHA Youth World Show. They also
they hosted a big horse show, did they? I mean, a lot of them have been canceled.
Oh, yeah. They have a lot of big ones. I moved here from near Austin, actually, and it's a little bit wild out here. There's not tons of hunt seat going on, but there's a little, and there's more in Tulsa, which is a couple of hours away. So
excellent. So, how have you been keeping busy during with the horse pandemic, horse related activities during the pandemic?
It's been really good. We've had I've had a couple of riders and horses that have new combinations, and it's given them time to get used to each other. We have a little pony that we picked up, a Western pony that's going to be a wonderful hunt seat horse and jumper, and we're kind of working with him. And we spent a lot of time getting horses injected and trying different things with shoeing because, without the pressure of horse shows, you have a lot of time to kind of work that out.
Wow. So, during the pre-show here, you mentioned that you worked with some Olympic riders and during the heyday. So what was it like working with them?
Well, I was so lucky because I worked for Nona Garson for probably up to 10 years. And her farm was in Lebanon, New Jersey, which was just miles away from George Morris's Hunterdon place and Ann Krasinski's farm and the USET headquarters where they had all the selection trials. And it was in the 90s when show jumping was just getting to be super fashionable and popular. And I was just so lucky to be there at the time. She rode with George Morris, so I was over there all the time with her, and we'd see, Joe Farges drop in, Ann Krasinski drop in, Norman Della Gioia drop in, either with horses to work with George or meeting there with new horses to sell or buy. So it was super exciting. And it was great learning that as an instructor too, because George, not only giving riding clinics, gave a lot of teaching clinics that were geared towards instructors. And he'd have great riders like Judy Richter be in the clinic, and it was an excellent place to learn the basics very well, because he always stressed that, that you have to start with the basics and you have to start with a good foundation. And of course, it was exciting being with Nona at that time. We were doing tons of selection trials so she could qualify for these different international events. And she was just starting to make a name for herself. And there was a whole group of riders like that. Chris Kapler was working with George at the time, and Laura Kraut was coming up, and BZ Patton was not far. She was in Casanova, I believe Casanova, upstate New York. So it was just a great time to be in the business.
Sounds like really exciting. So have you been doing any judging?
Not too much, with the COVID, they had to cancel a lot of shows, and understandably, they're trying to catch up with the judges that were
Yeah.
already booked. So I've been concentrating a little more on my teaching. I do have a couple of shows coming up. I have a couple of IHSA and IEA shows that are happening later this fall, and some schooling shows, but we are deciding in September whether to go to Colorado or Iowa or Texas for a show. I think we're going to end up going to Texas. So, and that's going to kind of be our first show back after the
So
pandemic. So
how
we're
far
looking
is it for you from Oklahoma to Texas?
about 5 hours. It's a
Okay.
show at the Texas Rose Horse Park in Tyler, and they do a great show. It's all outdoors. I mean, nice outdoor rings, and Kim Brunson runs it, or she owns the place. So they do some nice shows there. Colorado's fun too, but I think it's just a little too far right now. We gotta stay a little closer to home.
So you are a USEFR judge, is that correct?
Yes, our judge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And for me, I'm a Equestrian Canada senior judge, hunter, jumper, equitation, and hack, and a senior steward, and also a competition coach specialist. So while we're here, I just want to remind everybody if you have any questions, please ask them in the comments. We'd appreciate any questions that you have if we explain something that you don't understand, or you would like to have some clarification on something. We'd be happy to answer any of the questions that you have. And people have been sending in their images for us to take a review. We have a few here. If you would like to have your photograph reviewed, just send us an email, thistleridge@hotmail.com, and we could get it on here for you. And do you want to take a look at the first person?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So this is Cassidy, and Cassidy has sent in a photo, and we're going to share that as soon as I press the right button. If you see us looking down and looking up, it's because we're looking at the screen here, and the camera's there, but the screen is there, and we might have to look at it. So this is a photo that Cassidy sent in. Thank you so much, Cassidy, for sending this in. She thought she was going to get reviewed last week, but we ran out of time, so we're doing it this week. And if you do send in a photo, please send it in from the side. You can see this kind of slightly from the back. So if you have something from the side, that would be preferable, just so we can see your profile.
Mm-hmm. Makes it easier. Well, this sure is a cute horse. He's getting his little knees up, his ears are forward, and he's making a good effort over that little cross rail. It looks really cute. Cassidy is jumping ahead a little bit. You can see if you look that her she's right over the pommel of the saddle.
Yeah, her seat is over the pommel. You could see the whole seat of the saddle here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly an illustration of jumping ahead. And usually when you jump ahead, your leg starts to swing back a little and your heel comes up. I mean, she's staying out of the way and giving her horse plenty of rein to jump, and I appreciate that. But just being able to sink down in the saddle a little bit is going to help you land so much more organized. Whenever you jump ahead, you always land a little willy-nilly,
Yeah. So I agree with you totally. I like this. Looks like her head is somewhat up, so her eyes are.
Looks like her eyes are up. Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to see. What about her hands? I really love this here, that she's not interfering with the horse at all. But there's a difference between, though, Patricia, of staying ahead and not interfering. Right, you can stay ahead and still have your seat over the middle of the saddle and not interfere.
Right. Because here, when you jump ahead, you can tell all her weight is pretty much on her hands. She's really kind of leaning on her hands for balance. And I don't mind helping yourself over a fence, especially if you're at this level, but grab a little piece of mane and let your balance be in your center of your body over your leg, which will put you a little more in the center of the saddle. But there's nothing wrong with grabbing mane. But I think when you put your whole weight on your hands, it's just kind of starting a habit that is not a good one.
Yeah, so there's the kind of thing that I was looking for, is like try to get your seat in the over the middle of the saddle. And
Mhm.
what one of the things that I was thinking about is think that there is a got this from Susan Harris, who does the
Oh, it's
rider stuff,
yeah.
is that she suggested doing having a seat belt that goes from like the seat of the saddle around your hips to the seat of the saddle, so that your seat does not come out of the saddle,
Mhm, mhm.
so that keep your seat over the middle part of the saddle.
Yeah, yeah, and
I like go
we
ahead.
we used to help keep your leg underneath you, take something to be careful, something that will break, like a piece of yarn, that will break easy if you get in trouble, and just tie that stirrup to the girth, and that kind of holds your leg underneath you and gives you a little idea of where to align things.
Right. So yeah, I like that, having the stirrup in line with the girth. That's really important. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
But like
And
I say, I don't like to use anything that won't break, just
no,
in case the rider gets in trouble. So be
that's
careful if
right.
you do that exercise that you do that.
You're talking from experience, I think, Patricia. Have you have
No,
you had
no,
that done to you?
no. Oh, I've had it done to me, yes. I've
Yeah.
had it done to me,
In the
absolutely.
good
I've had
old
to
days.
ride with
Yeah.
the crop behind my, back in the crooks of my arm. I've had to do that. Tons of work without stirrups. I kind of grew up in the business through Ron Danta, and he's such a good trainer. I know he's more famous these days for organizing those hunter derbies and his work with stray dogs. But
Oh,
he's
right.
such a
Yeah.
good trainer. Yeah, Ron Danta with Ron and Danny's Rescue. Such a good trainer. I mean, we were always doing exercises, always working without our stirrups, always just such an attention to detail. It was a great learning experience.
Yeah, so I was, I think, probably the same sort of era as you, but with
Mhm.
the riding crop
Mhm.
behind the back, and elbows tied behind the back, and had to ride with a salt block to, because that's really good core exercise. Yes, but the other thing that getting back to this rider is that if you took that horse away from underneath this rider, where would she
She
land
wouldn't be
standing up in
landing
her
on her
stirrup?
on her feet. She'd be tipping. She'd be landing on her toes and tipping forward. And
Yeah.
that's a good point. I like to think about that, and kind of tell my riders that if the horse was snatched away from under you, would you land on your feet? And if you land square on your feet, that means you're over your center of balance. If you fall back on your butt, then you're a little behind. If you land on your toe and fall forward, then you're a little ahead.
Or
But if
if you
you're
even
right
have to, if you
in
think some riders even are so far forward, they have to put their hands out. So
Mhm, mhm. Yeah,
if you're watching somebody riding and you think, "Oh, gee, if I kind of took that horse away from underneath them, would they land on their feet?" That's kind of a, if they're not balanced over top of their feet, then that's how you can tell.
right, right.
So with this rider, Patricia, like, it doesn't look like her heels are down.
No, her heel could be down. She's kind of standing in her stirrup, which fits the picture of jumping ahead. Normally to jump ahead, you don't have that base of support, so you're relying really on your weight in the stirrups. And when you're standing in your stirrups, then the heel's going to come up.
So that means that the weight is not coming down, it's coming down here into her stirrup,
Mhm.
right?
It's like she's standing on the ball of her foot.
Right. And we'd like to have the weight coming down this way.
Mhm, mhm.
How are we going to get that? What's this rider going to have to do to get that done?
Well, I think a lot of 2 point, because when you're in your 2 point in your half seat, it gets those angles bending and relaxed. And remember, your shock absorbers are your knees and your ankles and your hips. And if any of those are locked or tense, like your ankle's locked and your heel isn't down, or your knee is locked and your lower leg is pivoting, then it's very easy to lose your balance. So lots of good 2-point. I wouldn't so much for the heels recommend riding without stirrups, because it's easy to do the same thing without stirrups, drop your toe. But definitely lots of 2-point. We're going to talk about some exercises a little later.
I like when you say pivoting. That's a key word for me, pivoting. Because when you pivot, you're pivoting here.
Yes, you're taking your lower leg off your horse.
And so your lower leg goes back. And what happens to your upper body?
Falls forward.
Yeah, it's like the teeter-totter. Yeah, so we'd like for her to do like 2-point position and think of sinking down in the saddle with the seat over top of the middle of the saddle.
Right. Shoulder. I like to think of a straight line from shoulder to hip. From shoulder to knee, pretty much, when you're riding, bringing that shoulder back so it's over the knee, and that
shoulder to knee. So
yeah, a little.
Kind of something like that. It's hard to draw a straight line. But we'd like for her shoulders to be here. Yes.
And because the leg's forward too, once you bend the leg the correct way, then the shoulders fall into place. Yeah, and lots of 2-point, lots of gymnastics, which we're going to talk about a little later. Things to where your body's going to develop the correct muscle memory, because you can't think about everything every second. But if you train yourself, your muscles learn where they should be, and do that when you're under times of stress or your mind is elsewhere, your position is still going to be solid.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so thank you, Cassidy. Well, we do have another picture, Cassidy. And Cassidy, stay if you're watching. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. And also, we are going to be giving you some specific exercises. We've got them drawn out. We're just going to go on to the next image here. So this is Cassidy. Cassidy sent in a couple of pictures for us to look at. And here's the other one. And this is a better photo because it's from the side. Unfortunately, it's a bit dark.
A little far away. Yeah, hard to see the leg with those dark pants and half chaps. So on this one, she's actually, she could be jumping ahead and still doing this, but on the landing side here, she's a little behind the horse. You can see her hands have come up off the neck. And even though it doesn't look like she's sitting down, if you see where the horse's back end is, he hasn't completed the jump yet. And when he pushes his back end over the jump and lands, it's going to push her body back a little, and then she's going to be behind.
Yeah, so it looks like her seat is in the saddle here already.
Right. Yeah, and she just needs to close that hip angle, keep your hands a little closer to the horse's neck, and let that horse complete the jump.
And we're going to assume that her
you could be a little more upright than that, I think, just a little, because you don't kind of want to land with your weight on your hands. Yeah, more like that. Yep.
So she's opening up her body too soon on landing. We'd like for her to keep her shoulders, actually this part here, because it looks like her body's coming back.
Her hands are coming up as her body's coming back. Yeah.
Yeah, and her hands are coming off the neck, and you could see that this is maybe when she was taking off, the reins were looped, but now it looks like the reins are tighter.
Yeah.
And it could be that you can't even see the reins, really.
No,
they're probably here somewhere.
They're pretty taut.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, oh, now I lost my train of thought. I think that she still could be jumping ahead to get this on the backside, because sometimes when you jump ahead, the horse lands and your weight falls forward, and then you kind of bounce back to get your balance. So.
Yeah, so she was ahead on the takeoff.
She
And
could be
then,
ahead. I don't know if this is the same jump or not, but she could be ahead on the takeoff and still land like this.
yeah. So keeping her body a little bit more forward. So
And again, staying over your leg. You can see even this picture, her legs a little forward, her legs a little in front of her hip. You can
yes,
kind of see where her heel is. Yeah. So that,
maybe that's her heel. Something. I
no, I
don't
think
know.
her
But yeah.
heel is right below the saddle.
Yeah, so her hip is here. We'd like for her shoulders just to be a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
forward.
Mm-hmm.
So her hands come on the neck and stay in that position for
Until a couple of strides, because it takes that long for the horse to land behind, and then he uses that hind end to canter off the next stride. So really, I like to stay in a full half seat, at least a couple of strides after the jump.
yeah. So if this were a larger fence, he might knock the back rail down because she is in the saddle a little too early.
Right, right. And even if they don't hit the rail, a horse jumps a little differently if the rider sits down too soon. Instead of keeping that nice round bascule and bringing their shoulder up, they tend to invert a little bit and kind of stick their head up in the air because they're being protective of their back.
Right. And something else that we always like to point out too is the jump cups.
Oh yes, yes.
If you're jumping, make sure the jump cups. It looks like a jump cup to me. So
Yes,
just
yes, I agree. But Cassidy's doing a lot right too. We don't want you to think, Cassidy, that we're just wailing on you because, she's got her hands are in a nice position. That here you'll see a straight line from elbow to bit, even though her hands have come off the neck a little bit. Her eyes are always up, which is super. I like to release over that first jump. I
yeah,
think it's very important when you're first
nice and
starting.
flat here too.
Yeah, nice flat back and yeah, so there's a lot good going on here too. You can just tell she's just getting a little jostled that last stride before and that landing stride. But it looks like she probably has a pretty nice position on the flat.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Very good. Pardon me. Thank you so much, Cassidy. Appreciate you sending in these photos and getting some comments. If you do have any questions or if anybody has any questions about this, put them in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them right now.
Thank you, Cassidy.
And so for Cassidy, for exercises, what would you, if Cassidy came to you, Patricia, for a riding lesson and was doing this, what would you recommend what kind of exercises would you do for Cassidy?
Well, on the flat, lots of 2-point, lots of half seat, and to do it through transitions, do it through changes of pace, do it through things that are going to jostle you around a little, circles, because that's going to force you to hold it. Whereas if you just practice it on a straight line along the arena, then you'll go to turn and lose it a little bit. So you want to be able to hold that half seat through thick and thin. And then once you get that real solid on the flat, it will start to carry over fences. And then for the over fences, tons of gymnastics. Gymnastics to me are kind of the cure-all because it gives you time to think about what you're doing because you don't have to worry about a distance. And you can really feel the horse under you use themselves, which in a lot of ways, a lot of times will help you put your body in the right place.
Right. Yeah. And I like where you say just gymnastics and exercises, even if I think too, the 2-point position for me, 2-point position is key for a lot of the lower leg issues that some people have. And if you don't have your lower leg, and that's just going to continue up for the rest of your position. Other exercises, 2-point, even 2-point at the halt and practice your balance at the halt, raise a hand up, raise 2 hands up, Cross your
And
arms.
transitions,
Tra-
trans
You
lots
know
of
what's really
transitions in
difficult
2 point.
is the halt walk transition, staying in your 2 point.
Oh,
That's a
yes, that's
real,
harder than you think. Absolutely.
yeah.
And another good exercise that we do that Ron taught me is, not just ride without stirrups, which a lot of times doesn't help your heel and your 2 point. It's good for helping you get a nice flat position, but drop one stirrup at a time. And that really affects your
Ouch.
balance. That really affects your balance. It's
Evil.
hard to be uneven in the saddle when you don't have one stirrup. It kind of forces you to stay square and stay right centered. It's a very good exercise.
That's a really good exercise too, because usually when you're riding, you'll sometimes do lose a stirrup.
Right, right.
And
If
it's usually
you
one.
get comfortable without one,
Yeah,
that's right. That
yeah,
will help.
yeah.
And, even beginner riders can do that. They can do that at the walk. They can do it at the sitting trot, Just think of things early to try to help your riders, balance and help them grow that way. Again, I think just riding around the arena doesn't teach you very much. It's important to ask a lot of yourself and push that envelope a little bit with your flat work.
I read something today that it's kind of along those lines. It was uh, everything you ever wanted is just outside your comfort zone.
That's a great quote. Yeah,
So
great quote.
yeah. So if you're riding here, you want to be riding at this level. Well, you're going to have to push yourself up,
Pump
and
yourself up.
it's not going to feel very good either. It's going to be uncomfortable until it does become comfortable.
Feel good. When I think those top equitation riders are a good example of that. It's like you can be riding along and everything looks pretty good because you're a great equitation rider. But if you're not still thinking, oh, I want my heel down just that little bit more, or, I want my seat just a little softer, or I want my horse to do a little more lengthening and see if I can hold it when they lengthen, pushing yourself a little bit, that extra little bit, even though you might feel comfortable where you are,
Yeah,
ask,
exactly.
ask yourself for a little more all the time and just don't depend on your instructor to tell you to do more. Push yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Mhm,
Exactly right. Just to be disciplined in your own riding as well, right?
mhm.
Okay,
Right, and especially when you ride on, like, I advocate, there's some instructors that like to keep their students in lessons and oversee things quite often. But I really believe the student needs time to hack on their own. Not so much the jumping, but the flat work, because I think it gives them an opportunity to practice what we've been talking about in lessons and let it sink in. And also gives you some time to bond with your horse a little bit without being told what to do. But you have to push yourself when you're riding on your own and not take the easy way out.
you have to figure things out, right? So
Mhm,
sometimes you have to figure things out on your own. Be a thinking
mhm.
rider.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our next I just wanted to remind people, if you do have your own photo you'd like to have reviewed, send us an email, thistleridge@hotmail.com, and we'll try to get that on probably next week. And also, Nikki said, just sent yours in. So, Nikki, we've kind
Hey,
of booked up
Nikki.
for today. Do you know Nikki?
No, but I'm
Oh,
saying yay that she sent a photo in. Good
thank
girl.
you. So we'll try to get to you next week, Nikki. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you know somebody who you think should be here watching and getting these exercises, send them a text. Tell them to come and watch us. Right.
Yeah.
So
Let's look
we
at the video. Is
okay.
that would
Video.
that be,
All right.
because this is a great example of someone who stays with their horse and stays out of their horse's way and allows them to jump,
All right.
allows them to finish the jumps.
Okay. So this is. You can just tell the people who is in this video.
This is Karen Ogle. She's an amateur rider. She rides with Mindy Koretz, and then I help her sometimes too at home. And she's an older amateur, but she's got everything's great as far as her position goes. Everything's in the right place.
Well, I can see right away at that first jump that she
Mhm,
stays forward for a couple
mhm.
strides after the jump.
Right, and here she's balanced up a little bit in the corners. You can see that she has a little contact. She's sitting a little here with her leg to make sure the horse gets there. But when she lands, that seat just stays out of the horse's way. And even in a line, a 4, 5, or 6 stride line, you really don't need to sit up in that line because you should be able to still steer in your half seat, right?
What a lovely smooth round.
Very nice round. This is a lovely horse too. There, that's a good view of how she kind of stays up. And there she organizes her reins, but she's still light in the seat because if you were to be sitting and pick up your reins like that and organize, it's going to slow your horse down. There she's using her leg super nice without sitting. A lot of people find it very hard to close their leg and not sit and drive a little with their seat at the same time.
Just pay attention to how she stays in the off of the horse's back out on the landing.
Yes,
Wow,
yes.
really nice. Okay.
Mhm. Good example of what we're looking for as far as, and you see the horse is so happy going around with his ears forward, keeping that nice pace, landing light. Well, there his ears aren't for. Landing light, and continuing the canter. I think when you sit down too soon, it breaks up that canter a little bit.
Yeah, it puts them off balance.
hmm
Let's just see if I can
hmm
figure out how to get that back to the start.
Okay, Hudson. I forgot this one actually. When you put your leg on him, he does want to pin his ears a little
Yeah.
bit. He's a little bit of a
But that's
lazy
so
guy.
steady. Like the way she's looking for her jump. She's
hmm
looking at it, balancing around that turn, putting
hmm
her leg on to move the horse to the jump, stays in her 2 point. Doesn't make a big move with her body, just nicely with the horse, doesn't get ahead of him. And like you
Right.
say, she's getting herself organized in the corners here.
hmm And a little bit of a contact, just a light one because you do want to keep your horse straight. You want to keep them organized. And at this level, you don't want to really be cantering the whole course with a loop in the reins. And also, I like the way she's letting the horse's pace carry her into the corner. She's not. A lot of riders, when the horse comes off the jump, they have a little momentum, and their first instinct is to pull back and
Right.
slow down a little, and then they have to get it going again coming out of the corner. But Karen's doing a great job of just letting him land and keep the pace, and then organizing without slowing down. Lovely coming out of that combination there.
It's really nice. Oh, I don't
Mhm,
like when it has the automatic, whatever it is. Yeah. There's a
mhm,
nice picture of her landing off of that jump.
mhm,
Weight right down in the heel.
mhm. And this is where you see the shoulder over the knee. Yeah.
So the horse can finish. So
Mhm,
if you kind of think back to the picture that Cassidy sent us, and she was at this point already sitting back in the saddle.
mhm. Yeah, so that's a great photo. And you can see that as the horse lands, she's not going to be sitting, she's going to be able to hold that position. Now, her legs a tad forward, her heels a tad up, but this is an amateur rider. Karen is an older rider and she's not a top equitation rider, but everything is in the right place, everything is balanced, and she's not interfering with her horse. And because she's so consistent, she generally gets very good ribbons in the equitation.
And also the horse's pace throughout this video, she sat up and balanced the horse, but didn't change really the horse's rhythm. Like you said, she didn't grab back on the reins and nothing really changed. She just used her weight to sit up and organize.
Right, right. And as a judge, I find consistency is usually what wins. You know, if you can have a round like this, and I think she did win this class, a round like this that keeps the same rhythm, all the jumps match, you know, even if the horse is not a spectacular jumper, it's going to be around with a spectacular jumper that slows down in this corner, gets this jump a little short, gets this jump a little long, you know, especially in the amateur divisions. The amateur and the children's, you're looking for this kind of trip.
Yeah, beautiful.
Mm-hmm. And this is a lazy horse. She's doing a great job of keeping him in front of her leg. But again, not having to sit down. And that's important too as an instructor to watch. You know, can your rider send the horse forward in that half seat without having to sit down and drive with their seat? See there, she's using a lot of leg and she's sinking down in the saddle a little more, but she's not driving with her seat, not driving with her seat.
Look at that. That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And there are seats up at the saddle, but compared to that earlier picture we saw, it's not over the pommel. She's going to land in the center of the saddle.
And these jumps aren't cross rails either.
No, they're either 3 foot or 3-3, I think.
Beautiful. Last combination was really nice.
Really nice.
Really nice, yeah.
And that's hard too, I think, in, you know, for a lot of riders to stay up in the combinations because the horse lands and it's so quick. Your instinct is kind of sit down and organize when you just really need to hold your position and let the horse jump out and do its work. That's why I like the gymnastics too, because the horse's frame is always changing, you know, and it forces you to hold that jumping position throughout the different places that the horse is going to be over the jumps.
Okay, so you mentioned gymnastics. Now we do have some pictures, of some of the exercises and gymnastics and poles and that type of thing. So
and I always start with poles. You know, poles on the ground is not as easy as you think it might be. So I would start with poles on the ground, cantering a single pole, cantering a 2 poles, and of course trot poles come very early. You know, even my beginner riders that aren't cantering yet can do trot poles. But the canter bounce, you want about 9 feet. But again, it depends on your horse's stride always, you know. And the size of your arena, a small arena, is going to slow the horse down a little bit. But cantering these poles on the ground, set at a bounce, and then set at a 1 stride. And the motion of the horse landing, jumping, forces you to have a real secure half seat. You know, if you can hold it through consecutive jumps like that, you can definitely hold it through a single jump.
Now you mentioned before when you set these up, I just put these in just for the just for this so we could see them all. You mentioned that you like to have them set up in the middle so they can go and then circle and then come back. So and these would be good exercises for on the flat for if, like you say, starting with 1 pole, all levels of rider could really do that. And these poles you mentioned or have here 4 foot 6 inches in between poles, but again,
it depends on the stride. It depends on
if you're doing a pony, it's going to be different. Oh, Nikki does have a question here. She says, "What's your opinion towards the spider jump?"
The spider jump. Nikki, I'm afraid I don't know that phase. Can you explain it to me a little bit?
Yeah.
Do you know that, Laura? Spider
Was
jump?
it in the video? Was it in the video? Was there a spider jump in the video? Let me just see here. Is there something with the spider on it in the video? I don't know what a spider jump is.
Yeah, explain that to us. We'll try to answer your question. And another thing I like to do is use poles on the ground and just set a course with poles on the ground so they can practice their turns and their pace without having to worry about a jump, to break it up. And that's a very good exercise as well. Poles are a wonderful thing, and it saves your horse. It saves your horse. They only have so many jumps in them, and it kind of
Yeah, and
saves your horse a little bit.
if you do put poles on the ground, that's just like riding a course. So you
Mhm.
have all the elements of the course, the straight
Mhm.
line, the turns, the looking over your shoulder, the balancing, riding to the jumps is all going to be the same, but you're not doing
Incorporated.
the jumps.
Yeah, you can do
My question
rollback
is
turns and angle the poles. There's lots of stuff you can do.
my question with regard to these poles on the ground is what do you do? And I see this a lot with some of the people that I teach is with the horse um, jumps with its front legs over the poles like this, or the back legs. Can you see that?
Yeah,
Over
yeah.
the poles, instead of making it a jump. It's almost easier if these were jumps
Yes,
because the
yes.
horse will
I mean,
jump it. But
the poles on the ground, you have to have the right canter, and that helps too. If you're cantering poles, trotting them, you have to have enough pace. But, the horse can't be pulling you, and he's going to wind up half trotting and half cantering. But the poles require a good pace because you have to have a little bit of impulsion so the horse, as you say, doesn't straddle the pole. But if they're going too fast, they're just going to knock them out of the way. So it requires a nice balanced medium canter, which teaches the rider a lot too. And then you can have a single pole that you have to hand gallop to, or a rollback turn, lots of, all the same questions that you get in a regular course, you can put in your poles on the ground. And
I
then
just got a message. I just got a message from somebody asking for the pole exercise. Can I send them the pole exercise, please? Yeah, there you go. I just sent it. Yeah.
And it's very important, as you said, to keep it in the center so you can approach it from either direction so your horse doesn't get one-sided. You can canter off in the direction of the lead that you're on, and if you don't want to worry about a lead change. And is it four poles jumps making a cross shape so you can jump the center and jump of the circle and jump every third pole. Yeah, I think any exercise like that, Nikki, is very good for the horse and rider. Teaches them both coordination. I think you have to make sure that you've done your basics first before you move on to an exercise like that. But I think that's a very good exercise, don't you, Laura?
Oh, I think so too. Okay, so she put a Pinterest out. Okay, so I'm going to copy that. Actually, I'm going to do that. I'm going to copy that. And let's see if I can copy that. No, I want to copy that. How do I do that?
And a lot of times what I'll do after gymnastic too, especially if you have a rider that tends to to sit down too soon, is I'll put a cone up a couple of strides after my gymnastic, and I'll say, when you hit this cone, I want you to stay in your half seat until you hit this cone. Then I want you to sink down a little bit, but still keep a light seat to the end of the ring. You can kind of teach them how long they should stay up and when they should sink down. And the same thing after your gymnastic, if you add a circle before you go straight, just add a circle and then continue straight. And you can say, okay, I want you to use this circle to gradually sink down in your saddle a little bit so that by the time you come out of your circle, you're down a little bit more than you were over the jump, but not sitting.
So I'm trying to find that.
The jumping exercise, or
Yeah,
the,
but I'm not sure how to get to it. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe if we go here.
do you have the picture of the verticals with the
Yes, yes. Yep, we could do that next. Here we go.
This is just a simple trot pulls to a cross rail, to a vertical or an oxer. You can start with a vertical and then turn it into an oxer. I find lots of low, wide oxers, like, keeping them under 2.6 or under, really help rider, because the horse is going to spend a little more time in the air over an oxer. And that teaches you to hold your body up and not want to sit too soon. So lots of low, wide oxers, I think, are good to improve your balance.
Yeah, really, really good exercise. They are all such great exercises. And as you say, you like to set these up in the middle so that you can come off of each rein.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some people, they like to put it up on a diagonal. That kind of limits you coming off of one rein. But
Right,
I
right.
guess if your ring is smallish and you want
You might
to,
need the space of the diagonal. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And a lot of times when I first started gymnastic, how about you have the vertical bounces
yep,
and one stride?
okay,
When I start an exercise like that, a lot of times I'll slant the poles. Like I'll put one side of the cross rail on the ground and then make the next one-sided, and then the next one-sided. So you have like little diagonal poles, but they're low enough that the horse can get the feel of the distance. So you can kind of, I like to start easy like that, and then,
yeah,
build up a little bit. But when you're jumping one stride like this, you want to progressively have the distance a little longer, like, because as they move through this, they're going to stretch a little bit and land with a little momentum. So I like to
right.
start maybe at 18 and then go more to 19 and 20 or 21 if it's a vertical. I
And
mean,
if you have, these are like proximate or
right,
rule
right.
of thumb type thing, standard kind of rule of thumb. And depending on the type of exercise you want to do, what do you want to get done with your horse? And if you have a pony, these will be changing
Right.
to shorter distances.
I think that's why it's so important to have someone on the ground when you're doing a gymnastic, because they can, your trainer can help you get the correct distance for your horse. A lot of times you'll end up knocking something down. You have someone to pick it up, and just overseeing the process is just a little more complicated than a single fence.
Yeah. And they can help you move it
Mm-hmm,
if need be.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the next one is the
The balance.
crossrail bounces.
The
Same.
bounces are the best I find, for teaching someone to hold their 2 point, because the horse is landing, jumping, landing, jumping, landing, jumping. And you really don't want your seat to touch the saddle at all coming through this. And you'll find if you jump ahead, then by the last one, you're going to be way on your horse's neck. And if you sit, your horse is going to probably stop. He's not going to want to spend that effort to do the bounce when you're sitting on their back. And grab that mane. There's nothing wrong with grabbing mane. I read an article the other day that showed you how to slip your finger under the rein, like just your thumb and your first finger, so that you can be holding the mane, holding the mane without having to kind of let go of your rein to grab it with your fist. Just kind of tuck a piece of mane under your thumb and hold it like that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with holding the mane.
Mhm.
The mane, easy peasy.
Shoot,
It,
Nona used to hold the mane over the water jumps all the time, mainly because she had one horse that stopped real bad at them. So she learned to ride a little defensively there, which you got to do.
who was that now?
Nona,
No.
her horse
Oh,
Derek, the gray horse that she had, a very nice horse, but he had a little trouble early on with the water. Yeah, she landed in the water a few times, poor Nona. But she stuck with it, and he turned out to be fine over it and be a great horse.
Okay, and let's see what else we have here. Now we have this person. Oh, before we do that, I'm going to stop this, and I found it finally.
Oh yeah, the spider exercise?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I was thinking poles on the ground. That's not an easy exercise, but it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's a great exercise if you have limited space and you cannot really do a course. You can do this exercise and this will be your course, right?
Right. And you can jump like one jump directly and then make your turn and jump the other one.
Yeah, you can do like
Yeah.
this and then go around and do
Yeah.
this and go around and do
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Good
Or
exercise.
what did they say? Then you can do this one too, right? That's
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, especially if you have an eventer, you can just go right over that middle one. They're used to that kind of thing.
But these are all really good exercise. Thank you so much for sharing that because these maybe if it's not that height, I mean that's a good height too. So if you put Cavaletti
Yeah, you
or
can
something
start with
smaller, like you
Cavaletti.
say, poles on the ground, really good
Exactly.
exercise for
Exactly.
people who need to steer and turn and look where they're going.
Yeah.
That's a good exercise. Thank you so much, Nikki. Appreciate you sharing that with us. It
Thank
just
you, Nikki.
took me a while to figure out how to do that. Okay, so where are you? There you are. Okay, so Linda says, I have a tendency to duck over small jumps. What's a good exercise for that?
Still the gymnastics, and it's so easy when you don't have to think about a distance where you're coming to, because I think what happens is we wait, jump and duck, whereas in the gymnastic, that what you have to practice doing is hold the same position throughout the jump, the same position, because actually the ducking, until a horse gets to like a 3-3 fence, they don't kick their butt up enough for you to have to really stay out of the saddle. So a lot of times we're trying to help them over the jump when we duck, when you have to just stay still and concentrate on holding your position. So if she were to go through those bounces or those one strides, grab a little mane, stay in the center of the saddle and just concentrate so hard on not getting jostled around. And then just tell yourself, I don't know what height you're jumping, but just tell yourself that the horse does not need any help, like up to 3 foot. The horse needs no help. If they're sucking back, yes, they might need a little leg if they're slowing down in the corners. But as far as helping them off the ground, unless you get to a real bad distance, you're best off just holding your position and allowing your horse to jump the jump.
I like what you say about the bounce ones. If you are at the level that you can do bounce, even if you do 1 or 2 bounces, that will really tell the tale if you are getting ahead, because you cannot duck or get ahead when you are doing bounce exercises.
Yes. And you'll be able to feel it better, when you're jumping consecutive jumps close together. I think it's very easy to say, oh, wow, I kind of jumped ahead on that one. I landed in a heap and had to reorganize, where on a single jump, you can, it's a lot easier to disguise the feel of those mistakes.
Yes, if you land in a heap after bounce number 1, right? If you kind of get ahead here, by the time you get here, you better be starting to sit up and not doing that anymore, because
your body
it's kind of like the domino effect, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
self-preservation teaches us a lot, actually. I don't like to put my students in dangerous situations, but I like to put them in a situation where they have to think a little on their feet. What do I have to do with my body to keep this correct, to do this correctly, rather than saying, oh, keep your heel down, keep your straight line from elbow to bit, keep your crest release. Just let the gymnastic teach them.
So if you do have a tendency to duck, that means you're tipping forward. You're quick with your upper body. Think of
Kind of throwing your shoulders at the
yeah,
horse's
that's
neck.
what ducking means. So to
Mhm.
think of I can't see it here. Keeping your hands and pushing your upper body away with your
From the neck,
hands
yeah.
against the neck.
That's a great visual to
Yeah.
have.
And
Mhm,
think of the horse coming up to meet you. So you stay still and the horse comes up to meet you rather than
mhm.
you going down to meet the horse.
Right, right.
And I think also it's because we have been taught so well to not interfere with the horse, and we're
Mhm,
doing a great job with that. That we almost overcompensate
mhm.
by
Yeah, yeah,
almost getting too far ahead.
yeah. Absolutely, and I think a lot of it is to, like I said, trying to thinking that you need to help the horse to jump.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And, we really don't need to do that unless you're
Mhm.
jumping, what did you say?
Like
3
maybe
something?
3 and over, then I think you have to the oxers and everything, you have to support the horse a little in the air and be careful about that, but, most horses can make their way around a 3-foot course without too much help from you.
Yeah.
Now again, you gotta have to have a sense of self-preservation. If you come into a jump real tight or real long, you can't just sit there and do nothing. You have to help
Right.
the horse out a little bit. But,
Yeah.
if you're getting a decent distance, you don't have to do much except stay out of their way.
Yeah, so okay, so we've got, about a few minutes here. If anybody has any questions, put them in the, comments here. We'd love to hear from you, and we do have
Right?
another
They can
photo.
can they go back and watch this again? Do
Yes,
you
they
have any?
can. Yeah, this is it's going to be on Equestrian Skill Builders on Facebook and also on my YouTube channel. So yeah, they'll be able to see this. And if you want to share it to Patricia, that would be great. We do have this photo.
Yeah, this is a lovely photo. I mean, the horse is jumping beautifully. The fence is a little higher. I think this might be a derby class. Now, this rider is out of the saddle, but she's not jumping ahead. You can see she's got a lovely short crest release, and her hands are perfect. Her forearm parallel to the horse's neck. And if she were to sit back down, she'd be sitting in the middle of the saddle. She wouldn't be, even though she looks like she's up out of the tack pretty good, she wouldn't be landing on the pommel. She'd be
Yeah,
landing in the saddle.
her bum is in the over the
Mhm.
seat of the saddle.
Right, right. And this is a professional rider, and the professional's job is to make the horse jump as good as possible. So they're really going to try to stay out of their way. And you see this is Mindy Corrett. She is keeping her leg light, not pushing it into the horse over the jump, which is going to flatten him out. She's giving him all the room in the world to use his hind end, and just giving him a lovely release that still gives him some support so that he doesn't land too early, start
How
unfolding too
big is
early.
this horse, Patricia?
This is one of Karen's horses that we saw earlier in the video.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it's another one of her horses, Lorimar, and this horse is still a little green. He was imported, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, but he's doing the derbies now, and he's doing, I believe, the 3-3 performance, and really nice horse.
He looks huge.
He's not that huge. I think he's about 16.2, maybe.
So
Not,
the
not that.
rider
But
must be
Mindy is
quite petite.
tiny. Mindy is tiny. Mindy is like maybe 5'1" or 5'2".
Oh,
So
she's
she
quite
makes it
petite
look
then,
big. Yeah,
yes.
very petite. Yeah. Yeah, you can see where her foot is on the horse's body. It's barely below the
Barely
elastic
below
of
the
the
saddle
jersey.
flap.
Yeah.
Wow.
But this is
Nice.
a good picture too of a happy horse, very happy horse. He's so relaxed. His back's relaxed, his ears are relaxed.
Look at that
He's
bascule too,
Yes, yes. He's interested
beautiful
in what he's
looking
doing. He doesn't look
legs,
sour or yeah, no, really,
knees up and square.
yeah,
Beautiful. Really
yeah.
lovely.
Your horse will tell you, if you're doing things right. I think a lot of times your horse will tell you if you're doing them wrong, and they'll appreciate it and jump well if you're doing it right.
Excellent. Okay, so we are going to wind it up there. Thank you so much, Patricia.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. And
Yeah,
I hope we gave some people some things to think about. They can pull that up and copy down those exercises and go to work fixing their position problems.
right. Do you have any final words you'd like to share with our watchers or replay watchers today?
No, I don't think so. I just think, practice what we've talked about and be especially mindful, when you ride. Be mindful and not just going through the motions and feeling what might be correct or incorrect and how your horse is reacting. I think, a lot of times when we ride, it's like, especially our flat work, it just we do it by rote instead of really concentrating on what the feel is.
Yeah. That's very good. Very good advice. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, Patricia, for
Bye,
spending your
everybody.
morning with us. Now go use this stuff and go hug your horse.
Yeah.
Thanks now.
Bye.
Bye.